In today's episode, there will be mention of DUI, experiencing trauma, mental illness and intrusive thoughts, and therapeutic work done at a prison. Welcome to Able Pathways Podcast. I'm Annabelle Ferber, founder of Able Pathways, where we provide executive function coaching for neurodiverse individuals and professional development for educators. Our podcast explores the windy journeys of learning and growth. Each episode, we travel the unique pathways taken by a diverse range of interesting people as they reflect on pivotal moments in their lives that led to unexpected insights and transformation. Through these conversations, we hope to illuminate the infinite pathways for how we grow and learn. Visit our show notes for links, information about our speakers, and resources mentioned on this episode. Today, we're exploring a unique pathway to becoming a therapist with Leah Potter-Weight. We'll trace the decisions that led to this path and explore what they mean for the future. I'm delighted to be joined by Leah, who's working toward her social worker degree and actively involved in community work. Before we dive into our main conversation today, I'd like to start with a quick warm-up to help our listeners get to know you a bit better, Leah. What are you currently reading, watching, or listening to? Is there anything that's captured your attention lately?
Well, this is an extra fun question because for those who don't know, dear listeners, Annabelle and I also have a side podcast we occasionally tune in with where we talk about stories, books, movies, things like that. So I love talking about stories with you, Annabelle.
Same.
I'm watching Alien Earth. Are you watching that?
What subscription is that on?
It's Hulu. Yeah. It's
Okay.
so good. And we actually just watched last night, me and my partner watched the original Alien from 1979 with Sigourney Weaver.
Oh,
And it
oh
was
yeah.
really fun to go back. It's a scary movie and
It
but it's a
holds.
delightful. It holds, and like the way they used to do the visuals all sort of analog style and not CGI style is like just looks really good. And I love thinking about aliens, and they have the xenomorphs have such a crazy life cycle. I still haven't quite figured it all out, but it's wild.
Follow-up question. What is a small joy or like a simple pleasure that you've experienced lately or you're drawn to these days?
I mean, I feel like small joys are part of my self-care, so I could name a lot, but one that I do is I live right by a river in northern New Mexico, the Santa Cruz River, and it's really nice if I'm feeling overwhelmed to just walk myself over there and plop myself down and, um, enjoy time by the river, and every once in a while, our cat Violet follows me, and then I feel like I'm Alice in Wonderland with my cat, you know?
Your cat Dinah?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So let's get into it. I want to start off by exploring some of these personal pathways as they relate to your interests. So, could you share a story about how your interest in social work first began? I'm curious about how those early sparks set you on this path.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question because social work as a concept wasn't fully on my radar until a few years ago. I was
Mm,
much more interested in psychology and just what is it to be human, and I think that's been happening for a long time. I don't know if I can pinpoint it, but I will say, like, when I went off to undergrad many moons ago, I came in thinking I was gonna be an engineer, and then I was just not connecting with those classes, and I was like, "What am I gonna do?" And I was just looking around for what was actually able to capture my very distracted young brain, and what has been able to capture it is psychology and people and what makes us tick and what is it to have trauma and how do we heal and all of these things. So that has been clear for a while, but then layer that on top of I love talking to people about their deepest, sometimes darkest things and experiences, and I feel honored that I find myself in a lot of those conversations with people, often people I love, but also sometimes you never know what you're gonna get when you're walking around the world curious about people. Sometimes people pick up on that, and they'll share all sorts of things with you, and I mean, sometimes I'm not in the mood for it, but often I am in the mood for it and wanna dive deep into
Mm.
the rivers of the psyche with people.
Mm. I love that and share that intense
Mhm.
fascination with what it is to be human and to your point too about how do we heal.
Mm.
Do you feel like there were specific, like, unexpected detours in your journey that ultimately enrich your perspective, the perspective that you now carry?
Oh, yeah. I think my life is all detours at this point. I and that isn't to say that I haven't been career oriented. I have had times where I've been oriented towards a particular career, but I am someone who has shifted a lot. I feel so grateful that I was able to have so many detours and follow my heart and not have I mean, there were money stressors, but not to the degree that that some people have, and so I had that privilege, and I hope everybody, um I wish and hope everyone can have that privilege and opportunity to explore like I did, because I shifted ideas and careers a lot, and one of the biggest most important shifts in my career has been my turn towards agriculture, which started in high school, actually, because I got in trouble with the law and was trying to deal with getting a DUI, um, the sentence of a DUI reduced and had to pay a lawyer. So I got this job on a farm working with little lambs who I named and I fed with bottles and I mucked their poop. Um, and that led me to a long career of agriculture,
Mm.
and organic agriculture and regenerative agriculture, and that was very balancing for me, very important that I was immersing myself in nature and cycles and forced to contend with the chaos of farming and the pests and the storms and the all the things that come with nature, the bigness and wildness of nature, and, what does it mean to work with nature and to make decisions that will affect nature, and it was also very healing for me, and my own traumas and my own challenges and my own mental illness, or challenges with mental health. I don't know, not everybody loves the term mental illness, so I wanna use it,
Mm.
gently, and, over all those years, I got to be in such meaningful conversation with so many people and meaningful relationships. And now to turn towards social work, but carrying um, these years of love of nature and plants has led me into new spaces that I never could have dreamed of before. Like I work at the prison with the Seed and Bloom Project doing horticultural therapy and
Mhm.
art and culinary and being able to share and spread the very human connection that we all have to nature um and I don't want to romanticize it too much because people also have very complicated relationships with nature that's different, but for many people I've been noticing that opportunities to work with plants or make a meal full of aromatic herbs or make some art about a memory of something in nature. It touches a lot of people, and so that's all in there. I'll stop there.
Which relationships or communities have been most formative in shaping your approach?
I hanging out with farmers has been super formative and like everybody else, farmers are complicated community with full of very different individuals, inside of it, but I learned a ton from both the skills and gifts of all those different farmers and their challenges, and stressors. And then moving into, like, activist abolitionist spaces, working
Mm,
well, learning from people like Adrienne Marie Brown about restorative justice and what that means, and inside of a culture that tends to, um, be a cancel culture, I highly recommend We Will Not Cancel Us by Adrienne Marie Brown for a very thoughtful reflection on the places where canceling makes sense and the many places where it doesn't from a restorative justice perspective. And
mm,
now working in the prisons and learning from Gunjan Cole, the incredible founder of Seed and Bloom and dear friend, I, I've I've been learning so much from my students about what it is to heal through the deepest of traumas. One thing that you and I talked about, Annabelle, just earlier today is how trauma begets trauma and how things like violence do not happen in a vacuum.
mhm,
And I'm not trying to say, therefore, I point my finger at all these people and they're the cause of it, but more to say that trauma and intergenerational trauma has these ripple impacts. And everyone in the classes that I facilitate at the prison has been through incredible hardship. And they're trying to prove themselves and heal themselves and all of these things inside a very punishing space that I fundamentally do not agree with.
mhm,
And I'm learning a lot about both the systems that I feel um, are not healing at all and that continue to stigmatize particular people, turn people into criminals and bad people. And then the reality individuals who are caught in these systems who are just demonstrating a resilience that is just so inspiring. So I'm learning from my students every day in that. Like, we'll do a thing where, at least with our minimum restriction students, we go out into this courtyard and there's plants. And so find a plant that's speaking to you.
mm.
What qualities in the plant do you see in yourself? Like, there's so much in that mirror image of, and what does it mean to see a rose, like, beyond against all odds, growing in this one dry courtyard amongst the barbed wire, like, plants, there's so much in what you're saying.
Yeah, I very much come from, like, the neurodiversity movement, which recognizes the impact of the environment itself being disabling to certain individuals, that not all disabilities, not all struggles are simply inherent in an individual. It can exist because of an environment.
Mhm.
And it's hard not to think about plants in that way because you plant the wrong kind of plant in the wrong environment, it dies. You don't say this is a stupid plant, it can't grow anywhere. You go, well, I didn't put it in the right environment. What does this need in order to really grow and thrive? And that's how I see learning. So it's so interesting to talk to you as well because you have feet in both of those worlds as well.
Oh my
Such
gosh, I love
important
that
stuff.
so much. I want that, like, yeah, it's true. I want that, like, sketched somehow and, like, on my wall because
Yeah.
yeah,
Before
how
we
do
label
we
someone broken, look at the environment they're in.
Yep. It reminds me of a little, like, one image comic of a koala clinging to the stump of a tree inside of a devastated forest where all the trees have been cut down, and there's a psychologist looking down on the koala and saying, "I think this koala is depressed." And it's like, yeah, if you place a being inside of an unhealthy environment where it cannot thrive, and then we pathologize on top of that. Yeah, it's
Environment.
tragicomedy.
Yeah, it is. You're somewhat blind in the world. Um, If you're not
Yes.
connecting people into their environment. Yeah.
Yes, and, like, with the students at the prison, to think of what these students could be how they could be feeling if they were in an environment that held them, saw them, respected them, and all of those things, and to see how they're able to find their healing and find their clarity and find their vision inside of this hellscape is like it's like this balanced testament. It's a testament to human resilience, and it shouldn't have to be so fucking hard, you know?
Resilience itself is a taught and learned skill. It's not a choice to be gritty or all these like words we constantly
Yeah.
throw out. Like you just have to try harder,
Pull
as
yourself up
opposed.
by your bootstraps. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, very interesting topic for another day. I want to get into like these
Okay.
pivotal moments, like with any concrete examples you're willing, interested to share. I think the pivotal moments are those moments that sort of transform our thinking or perspective on something.
Yeah, I thought about this because I saw this question ahead of time, and so I've been chewing on it.
Nice.
What I came up with is that my pivot began in the depths of despair.
Mm,
So, I'm 35 now. When I hit my mid-20s, around 24, I entered a very, very scary time with my mental health, and my mind became a place of terror, for a couple years, I would say. Most heavily for a year. I was living with my mother in Michigan, in Lansing, Michigan, and she was doing her best, I know it was scary for her too. And yeah, I had had mental health challenges for a long time. I was forced to see a therapist as early as middle school. I mean, and also I think my parents were smart to send me. I was very resistant to it for many, many years and diagnosed depressive at a very young age. And it culminated in the way I think about this now and tell the story now is that it culminated in this time in my mid 20s where I had so many negative thoughts about myself that had been running on autopilot for so long. And, and then combining certain substances with that turned into my mind being a place of a lot of intrusive thoughts would be the more technical term for it. I was having intrusive thoughts. So my mind felt out of control and it was absolutely terrifying. And I thought I was going to end up in an institution forever. And, I say that like I'm smiling, but I'm not, it's in some ways to protect myself from the pain
yeah,
of that time,
yeah,
Um, and when I hit the bottom of the barrel in that moment was like the beginning of really, really needing to seek professional help from therapists, wading through a lot of bad therapists to get to good therapists,
yeah,
um, really taking my mental health journey seriously, really trying to face down my conditioning, and my patterns and my traumas and where they've led me and what sort of thoughts on autopilot are, symptoms of those traumas and what I can do about it. And, I'd already studied psychology in undergrad before that point, but I also think that was the beginning of my journey for like, by going on my own inner journey with that and outer journey, um, it led me to the place I am today, which is I don't struggle with intrusive thoughts
mm,
anymore, and I feel really grateful. It's not to say that they never happen, but it's to say that they do not have the death hole grip on me that they had then, and
yeah,
I have so much more ability to be with myself, and I have self-love, which, like and I have all of these things, these feelings and skills that I didn't have back then, and so I thought for your question, I would just focus on that journey and, like, how that came to be, because there's a lot of answers to where
yeah,
to how I've been able to grow in this way, and that's not to say I have grown and now I am perfectly mentally healthy and everything is figured out and I never struggle. That is not true, but I have incredible amounts of self-love, an incredible community, a career I'm excited about, and, um, and it gives me a lot of, hope and belief in the human experience and people's ability to grow and to heal.
yeah. Because you did and are.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you would want to speak on how you navigated uncertainty through some of those spaces that you just talked about in terms of working on your own mental health and what you went through, and how that sort of reignited interest in an already existing interest,
Mhm,
of
mhm.
psychology. But yeah, how did you navigate that uncertainty, um, as you started to question like what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, I'll say at least at that time, at my mid-20s, when I was pivoting towards really helping myself heal and taking that part of my journey seriously, I navigated uncertainty by following what felt like the next healthiest move, um,
Mm,
and not really having a sense of where I was gonna land, because that was still I was deep in loving farming, and I remember as this journey of, like, I'm in the depths of my darkness, like, where am I going from here? Like, seeing a psychologist and then, like, moving to Sequim, Washington, and helping my friends set up their farm and, finding another therapist and doing,
mm,
like, ayahuasca ceremonies for the first time, and I have complex feelings about that because of cultural appropriation, and I will say it was incredibly powerful and meaningful, um, at the time. I even though it was scary and I saw some scary things in it, it was part of one of the many things along
mm.
the journey, and so uncertainty was walking with me at all times, and it was therapy, it was community, it was friendship, it was learning, it was books, it was school, it was a million things coming together and me continuing to have to believe that there was hope up ahead that kept me going forward. Um, yeah, I could say more specifically if you want me to drill down into any of those things.
Well, the next question I have might lead us more into that. I'm prefacing this with an assumption that I think oftentimes our most valuable insights come from challenging experiences. I think
Mm.
we recognize that through adversity and challenge comes transformation. Was there a particular struggle that later revealed itself to be really instrumental?
I think it is my mid-20s because, you know, I think of, like, the traumas experienced in my teen years as sort of left unprocessed and festering in me until I really started
Mm,
feeling their effects in my mid-20s in a bigger way and then being forced to deal with them. So I do think that is sort of my instrumental turning point. I wish trauma on no one, ever. Like, I would wish
right.
none of this stuff. Like, I don't want anyone to have to grow through resiliently this, like, pain. Um, and when it's not toxic to the point of, overwhelm, like or even if it is, but you have a way and a pathway to heal through that, but
That's
so many
right.
people don't get to have that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a big part of why I wanna be a therapist now, and I'm working towards that and getting my feet wet with all the work I'm doing, and, um, 'cause I because, I mean, life is just full of so much pain and confusion and yeah, and I don't think you have to go through all the pain to understand that someone else has pain,
Yeah.
but and I do think there are times where it can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And even if my experience as a white woman is so culturally specific and privileged and buffered, so I can't fully understand someone's pain who has, all these other forms of oppression they're having to navigate. But I would hope that I can tap into my pain enough to know that I don't even understand or comprehend all that someone else has been through, and that can be a guiding force for
Yeah.
me.
So I'm curious if there was a belief or assumption that you had that you once held pretty firmly. Anything that you really reconsidered, something you really firmly thought before, and now you're like, this is really turned on its head for me.
Yeah, actually, it's very connected to what we've been talking about, which is I really got caught up in cancel culture, like, as in I have a kind of fiery personality and have for a long time felt a lot of passion and anger and, like, feelings of wanting things to be more just, and, some of that was also just developmental, like, I've had when I was younger. I was very sure of myself and, fiery about all my beliefs, and um, have gotten caught up in wanting to take down certain men. And sometimes that actually really does make sense when it's powerful men who are experiencing no justice, no true justice. Has made sense as a mechanism we can use to, speak to powerful movie producers who are doing things. But I've also let some of that trickle in. I let some of that trickle into my being. And I think working in carceral spaces, working more with restorative justice, is really working me on a molecular level around patience with people, around forgiveness, around, um, yeah, really, like, knowing, like, really remembering every single time with every single person that they are coming from their own very complicated past and have gone through their own very complicated struggles, and I'm noticing that rippling out into my life more, and I'm very grateful for it because I never would have thought myself someone particularly patient or forgiving for a lot of my fiery youth,
Mm.
in a way that is feeling increasingly important to me, and I'm finding it soothing.
Mm.
Now,
Feeling of
I don't actually want people to be incarcerated because I believe our prisons are so counter to healing. And I have this theory developing that I'm sure someone's already come up with, and it's not original, but I haven't actually Googled it, so I haven't been proven yet that someone already had this thought. But I've been thinking about how prisons become like this projection of our own stuff. Like we cast our own quote unquote sins, we cast our own tensions and demons and all of these things into people, and we say, you guys are the bad ones, you guys are the ones that are going to get punished. And like in that way we like collectively attempt to absolve ourselves of our own behaviors and our own thoughts and our own um things that we're ashamed of.
so I think many of the people tuning in to this podcast uh, are potentially navigating their own transitions, and you've made a number of transitions. You called them detours, but I think it's all part of one tree, the tree of your life. It all belongs together. What internal resources would you say or practices really helped you the most during significant periods of change? And I know you can speak to support systems, but I'm really thinking more of like that internal in navigation. Um, can you share or think of anything that you felt like helps you the most as you went through or are going through big transitions?
Yeah. Well, I am really lucky that I was trained to meditate at a young age by my father, and that has shifted in how it looks and feels, and I've had lots of breaks from it and things like that. But it has infiltrated my life in an interesting way, in a way I'm grateful for, which is my mind is reminding myself all the time to be present,
Mm.
and sometimes I still fail at that, but I I often think of, "Oh, am I actually feeling the water as I shower?"
Mm,
Or, "Am I actually feeling my body in this moment, or am I just all in my head?"
yeah.
So, that has really helped me to get into my body, and I'm like so many of us, so body oriented, and so much of our traumas and things we carry are, dialed into the body, like body keeps the score style. And so physical things like crafting, like with my girly Annabelle, um, or dancing or
Yeah.
hiking. Um, and then also recently, this is going to sound super woo, and I generally try to avoid looking or sounding too woo, but I'm just going to
Forgiven.
lay it on you right now.
Yeah.
But I got told by a few of my witch friends because I was talking about how it's been heavy with all the different clients and students I have and all the things they're going through. Because I'm also working at a health clinic now in the behavioral health
Yeah.
faction of the health clinic, and so I'm working with clients who are going through a lot of intense things, and it is hard to put that down at the end of the day, but my witchy friends told me about different stones that can collect people's energy, and so what I've been doing is wearing stones like this obsidian, and then I take this object and I put it on the porch, and then I am like, "Stars, do your thing tonight." I don't like,
Yeah.
whatever you wanna do to clear off this energy, and then the next day, I take the stone and put it on again, and I, uh think that physical ritual of being like, "I'm putting this down so it can clear out," and then it just gives me a reason to step outside on my porch to look at the stars or look at the sky and remind me that I don't have to carry all this with me. So, like, whether you believe in the spiritual side or just the sort of, like, placebo side of it, I think there's something in physical ritual, that's helping me through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
I love that. The clearing of stones and letting that carry some of the burdens and the visualization of letting that be cleansed and then sort of fresh for you.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah, I
for sharing that.
really of course, and I also just wanna shout out my incredible friend, Monica Canfield-Lenfest, who has a business, Sacred Mirrors, but anyway, she does these cool meditations that she learned in her psychic school that are all about, energetic boundaries, so basically, like, sensing what is yours and what is somebody else's,
Uh,
and her meditations and visualizations are, like, super essential for me of being like, "What is mine? How am I just, like, letting people's stuff into my space, into my body, and what can I, like, kind of release out?" And, so I there's also that inner
yeah.
stuff that helps me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I'm curious about the integration of your academic knowledge that you're learning with your lived experience. How would you say like you've sort of integrated that more intellectual side of things that you're learning with your lived experiences and how that is impacting the way you approach folks, whether it's at the behavioral center or prison?
Well, it's funny because 'cause you're asking me while I'm in school, so I'm currently getting my master's in social work, working towards it at New Mexico Highlands, and, so I am deep in the academic learning, and while I'm in it, I am at the prison, I am at the health clinic, and I am working actively with clients and students, and it is like a real because I
Yeah.
really love I think our program is really well structured. We read a lot of stuff that I really love. We are really learning how to the best of our ability, be with people where they are, to be, really, like, culturally attuned to the way someone is, like, conceptualizing their own experience, and so I'm so grateful for that, and so I'm learning all these modalities, like if this, then maybe CBT, if this, then, maybe this would be a good moment for, well, every moment's a good moment for a mindfulness practice in my opinion, but get what I hope is that ultimately I'll just be able to be present with someone, and those things become like sort of a
Ah,
background river, and I can
yeah.
kind of like,
Dip in
um
as you need.
dip
Yeah.
in as needed without being too, like, having, like, a sort of branching tree in my mind of, like, if this, then this, 'cause that's gonna take me out of it, out of the moment. So, I wanna keep
Yeah.
learning all those modalities, all those tools, and they're so interesting, and some of them are very powerful and very helpful, but I can't forget about being a human with a human. So I'm in that process right now, and it's tough, and sometimes my brain feels like I'm, like, tying myself in knots, but, I assume, and what I hear is that practice will make it easier.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you what aspects of this work do you find the most energizing and meaningful? Where are you finding joy in this
Mhm.
work?
I think each of our lives and our own healings are a journey, and so I feel this, like, deep honor to be able to be next to someone on their journey, and I really am just hopefully just next to them. I'm not guiding it, I'm just facilitating some thoughts and reflections and experiences on their journey that they're guiding. To be able to step into that space with someone of psyche, of memory, of belief, of, all of it is so it's fascinating. I'll say intellectually, I'm very stimulated by it, and the puzzles, and the fact that you don't really get to just unlock the answer. It's just this ongoing exploration. Um, and then just like the people hopefully feeling in that moment, seen, or mostly that like that they can see themselves, and feel a sense of hopefully relief and strength, and that is what keeps me so into it.
As you look to the future of therapy, what emerging questions and possibilities most intrigue you?
Well, before we started recording, you shared a little bit about this question, and you sort of cheekily mentioned universal basic income, but like for
Oh,
real
yeah.
though, like if we go back and back and back, if we really like think about, I mean, back to that plant metaphor, creating environments and healthy soils for everybody to grow in, then and stop pathologizing everybody's problems as if everything is their own fault when we know that that's not true. Um, when it's so much more complicated than that, and we're all responding to our environment all the time. It just makes me want to, see a healthier environment and a healthy world. So, universal basic income, have access to affordable health care, um, being able to be respected in the world and not have to deal with the daily aggressions of racism and sexism and all the isms that people are having to deal with the deluge of those oppressions every day. And those are not going to be, I'm not saying these are easily fixable. That's like deep, deep wishes and dreams, right? But, that happens in policy and it happens in our interactions with one another. That's one reason I've always admired Adrienne Marie Brown for really drilling down on like how we interact with the people right around us is how we ripple effect, change the world. I think that her way of thinking helped me want to enter the field of therapy because I want to be learning better about how to relate to people and relate to myself. And so I think there's a lot of, to steal a metaphor from the Soul Fire Farm folks in New York, there's a lot of wings on the butterfly of change and activism. And we all have like a part to play based on our passions and our interests and what works for us and um our various challenges and all of that.
I love that. I was actually just thinking last night about like the kindness of the idea of considering 7 generations in the future,
Mm.
which was a concept I do not understand fully that I heard from America, from Native Americans. Um, but I was just thinking about like the horror of the billionaire class not caring about a future. Like they can't care about this generation, let alone 7 generations, and that's a
Mm.
product of society, that's not an individual problem. Not that they shouldn't be held to account, but I'm just saying, like, they're not born this way. Uh,
Yeah.
we're creating that, and what would it take as a culture to get to the level of, I think, mental health that we think about how what we're doing now affects 7 generations in the future, and I think that's a type of mentality that can be taught. All things can be taught, but I am a teacher.
Yeah.
There's my bias.
I think that's so beautiful. I love that idea because you're right. That's another reminder, like nothing happens in a vacuum. And so, yeah, how do we keep changing generation by generation, raising up ourselves and the next generation to be broadening our spheres of care to
Yeah,
include the future generations, to include even healing through past generations. Like, how does our own healing heal the
right.
ghosts of our past, if as a metaphor.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So let's go 5 years in the future. It's 2030.
Mm.
What aspects of your life are you hoping will have evolved or transformed? Where are you hoping to see the most change in the spaces that you're in?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel like maybe my answer to the last question could also be an answer
Oh, some
to
universal
this
basic
questions.
income. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Socialism.
Yeah, so ditto on a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
for changes, that I'd like to see. I really hope we are post-Trump era, in 2030. I hope we're really willing to explore something beyond our Democrat, Republican binary, into something, that actually addresses, um, humans and people and everyone and not just the few billionaires. And I do hope, you know, I feel encouraged by the fact that we've seen so much change around the conversation of mental health and stigmatization of conversations around mental health. Um, I know for sure that there's a lot of clients, like, I mean, at the prison, for example, we don't call it therapy. We call it class, and we call them students, not clients. Like, therapy happens through the side door. I'm a real believer in therapy through the side door, and we don't even have to call it therapy, but just, like, having wise, well, I would never deign to call myself wise, but ideally wise
You will one
individuals.
day.
I hope, God. Wise individuals, whether they're trained in a particular field of therapy or whether they're an elder in a community that is, providing guidance through their own tuned inness and experiences. Yeah, I hope that people continue to have access to supportive people in their lives who can help them through hard times, because hard times are happening and they will happen. And um, when we stigmatize mental health, when we make healthcare inaffordable, we are cutting people off from opportunities to address what they've been through and to address traumas and to address structural oppression. Yeah, just increased access, and not just to therapists, but to kind, supportive people.
Mm, I love that idea. We should talk more about how we can create a network of people who can be supportive to others and to support people who are doing the work of helping people process trauma. What message would you share with someone who may be just beginning this journey into being interested in how the brain works, how the mind works, whatnot, who might be interested in different types of therapy,
Mhm,
who's questioning, like, what do I have to offer here? Like, what
mhm,
should my path look like? What advice, if any, do you have to give to someone else who may be in similar
mm,
shoes?
mm. That we need you. There are so many people that need support and are lacking support, and your unique journey and your unique take and your unique skills are needed for some of those people, just like mine are needed for some of those people. Not one therapist is for everyone. Not everyone is for one therapist. Like, the more diversity of therapists and support people and teachers and leaders we have, the more we can address and support each other. So that's one thing. I mean, and another thing is just like, what fills you up? Because it's exhausting out here, as we all know, where so many of us are tired and exhausted, but like, what sustains you and like, what is your unique contribution? Not everyone's gonna go into policy. Not everyone's gonna go into therapy. Not everyone, like, what is your unique gift for the world? Where can you continue to feel juiced and able to give? And obviously, no matter what it is, we all still have to find ways to sustain inside of it, personal to us. So, yeah, I guess like your unique blueprint for your own healing journey, like, I like, trust that, and then trust that you're needed in this space.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I think we forget because we do live in a society that would much rather we pick a box and a label that everybody knows. But both of us have sort of lived in generations where you don't have one job for the rest of your life or one degree. And that's been good news for folks like us that want a bit of
Mhm,
this, bit of that, and like to synthesize and
mhm.
integrate things as well. And so in some ways it's our time because that's the nature of things right now. And what unique opportunities do we have to
create space for individuals who feel connected to communities, but are that beautiful rose in the desert growing as well. Before we let you go, I know you've done some shout outs, so I'll make sure to include that in the show notes. But is there an organization or group that you particularly want to give an additional shout out to today that's doing good work?
Yes, I'll just reiterate Seed and Bloom. The website is theseedandbloomproject.com, founded by Gunjan Cole. I just could not say more about the meaningful work that she's doing, that Seed and Bloom is doing, the reflection and joy and connection that is being brought into the punishing space of prison through plants and art and culinary. Is really meaningful. So please go check them out. Even consider donating. It would mean a lot. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's discussion, I invite you to share this episode and subscribe to Able Pathways podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us to share these meaningful conversations with more people. Visit ablepathways.com or check out the detailed show notes for links to resources and organizations mentioned in today's episode. Have thoughts about this episode or suggestions for future guests? We would love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or email us at hello@ablepathways.com. Until next time, I'm Annabelle, reminding you that there are infinite pathways to growth. May you travel yours with curiosity and courage.